Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 251. Treston vs. Warwick. Warwick lifted his sword, forcing Treston's lance to slide off on the blade of his sword. Shying! After deflecting the lance, Warwick used the residual force to swing his sword toward Treston. Whoosh! The old warrior frowned and pulled his head back, narrowly evading the attack that would have cut off his head. While the two transcendents were fighting, the two armies had already clashed. The fearsome collision of both forces caused the ground to tremble. The sound of blades clashing, the soldiers' cries, and even the horses' neighs echoed. Anton Keller watched the battle with a look of discomfort. Did I make the right choice? Seeing the soldiers die because of his decision made him feel uncomfortable. The guilt was gnawing at him. Aru, I was foolish. I made a rash decision. He regretted it, but there was no turning back anymore. Meanwhile, the battle between Treston and Warwick had become more intense. They had to abandon their mounts to bring out their fullest potential. The area around them had already become a place of ruin. It was a total disaster, but there was still no clear winner between them. How is this guy so powerful? Treston furrowed his eyebrows. He had remained invincible throughout his life, and there had only been a handful of people who had defeated him. However, facing this newly ascended transcendent, he found it incredibly challenging. He realized at that moment that he was no longer the same warrior he used to be. He had become old, and his body was no longer as powerful as it was. He didn't want to admit it, but the cold hard truth slapped him in the face. You are indeed powerful, Sir Treston. If I had fought with you in your prime, I wouldn't have lasted long. Warwick muttered as their weapons clashed for 100th time. Treston frowned upon hearing his words. He knew that his opponent wasn't mocking him, but it deeply hurt his pride as a warrior. Feeling furious, he put more force into his lance, imbuing more mana into it to deliver a powerful strike. Whoosh! A devastating blow struck Warwick's sword. The force behind the attack was so overwhelming that he had to use all his strength to prevent himself from being knocked away. His legs trembled under the tremendous pressure, and the ground beneath his feet caved in. What kind of power is this? Warwick was stunned. He could barely block the lance from tearing him apart. Your name is Warwick, right? Your strength is not bad. But if you want to take my spot in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard, you still have a long way to go. Treston shouted before he released a whipping kick that sent Warwick flying into the air. What happened? Warwick's mind was in a mess, and it took him a few seconds to realize what had happened. I was arrogant. I thought I was already strong enough to fight someone like Sir Treston, but it seems like I have underestimated his power. Before he fell to the ground, he twisted his body and awkwardly landed on his feet. He could feel a burning sensation in his chest. It was where Treston had kicked him. He immediately used his mana to lessen the pain. Looking at the old warrior dressed in steel armor, Warwick revealed a trace of fear. Is this fear? He grinned nervously. My job here is only to buy time. I don't need to defeat him. I must hold on while Fredrin is saving those people. As he thought of this, he adjusted his fighting stance in preparation for his enemy's attack. Just then, Treston's figure blurred. Whoosh! So fast! Warwick was startled. He quickly evaded to the side. He felt searing pain on his left shoulder, which had been grazed by Treston's lance. If I had been a little bit slower, I would have been cut in half. Don't blame me for this, Warwick. I don't want to kill you, but I can't disobey my lord's command. Treston's indifferent voice drifted into his ears. Hearing this, Warwick felt a chill running down his spine. It wasn't a bluff. The old man was fully capable of killing him. Sir Treston, why follow a despicable man like Darwin? He is only a bully who oppresses the poor and the weak. Warwick shouted in an attempt to throw off his enemy's mental state. Treston snorted at his words. You know nothing. The old warrior stabbed out his lance. Whoosh! Warwick gritted his teeth and firmly held his sword as he deflected the attack. His hands bled after forcefully changing the trajectory of Treston's lance. Damn it! He is too strong. One more of that attack and I might lose a hand. His face was covered with thick beads of sweat. While breathing heavily, he kept his eyes on Treston, unwilling to take the old warrior off his sight. It was a good battle, but I must end this here, Treston muttered as he pointed his lance to Warwick. Wait! Warwick raised his hand. He could only try to buy some time here no matter how embarrassing it was. Treston raised an eyebrow. Do you have any last words? Warwick took a deep breath. He could die here and his next words would decide his death or his survival, so he had to choose what to say carefully. Sir Treston, you have a family, right? Do you think offending House Silversword would end well for you guys? Let me tell you this. Warwick paused for a moment before he continued. A more formidable warrior is coming here, and the moment he arrives, it will be the end of House Harrison. That includes your family too. As soon as he uttered those words, a fearsome killing intent descended upon him. It was so intense that he felt like there was a hand grabbing him by the neck. It seems like I have to crush your skull before killing you, Treston's furious voice echoed. Chapter 252. Title at the end. Looking at the old warrior who was about to attack him, Warwick quickly shouted, Sir Treston, think about your family. If you want them to survive, then you must listen to me. Before Treston could respond, another voice echoed. Don't listen to him, Sir Treston. That man is only deceiving you. Both transcendents turned their heads and saw a warrior on horseback approaching them. Lord Richard, what are you doing here? It's dangerous. Treston frowned and gestured for Richard to leave. When Warwick heard the man's name, he narrowed his eyes. He didn't hesitate and made a quick move. He rushed toward Richard. My lord, be careful. Treston's face fell upon seeing this. He promptly followed Warwick and threw his lance at him. Warwick sensed the danger and evaded to the side. Bang! The lance failed to hit him, but it gave Treston enough time to catch up to Warwick. Just as Warwick was about to capture Richard, he saw a figure appear before him. It was the old warrior. Warwick raised his sword and swung it heavily. Whoosh! The old warrior immediately lifted his shield. Bang! The old man's feet slid off the ground, but he managed to block Warwick's attack. TSK. Warwick clicked his tongue. You have no honor as a warrior. Treston glared at him. Warwick stared at him with a sneer. Old man, if you want to survive in this cruel world, sometimes you need to do things that you don't want to do. Don't let that foolish principle destroy your family, he added. Treston frowned. He then sent Richard a deep look and shouted, You must leave, my lord. You staying here will only hold me back. Hearing this, Richard's face darkened. Sir Treston, I am a proud warrior of House Harrison. I don't need your help. I can protect myself. He was an elite knight, a formidable one at that. Even among those in his realm, few could rival him. Treston almost had the urge to punch this idiot's head. This guy had been spoiled by Darwin all his life, so he developed an arrogant personality. If he weren't the heir of House Harrison, Treston would have already beaten him up. Shut your mouth, Richard. Get out of my sight before I do it myself. He had been holding back his anger for a long time, but there was a limit to his patience. Richard was stunned. He didn't expect to hear this from the old warrior. He wanted to say something, but the words were stuck in his mouth. In the end, he could only shamefully look away from him and leave. How dare a servant disrespect me like this? Damn it! Veins protruded on Richard's face. He had never felt such shame before. Meanwhile, Warwick let out a condescending laugh after witnessing this scene. Is that the heir of your household? He has quite the character. Sarcasm was evident in his voice. Treston stared at him coldly, unable to utter a retort. Lord Alaric hasn't even turned 20, but he is already an elite knight. In a decade, House Silversword will welcome another transcendent. With his talent, he might even advance further and reach the fabled mythical realm. Warwick proudly remarked. I'm running out of ideas here. What's taking Fredrin so long? While Warwick was using every means possible to buy time, another group had already infiltrated the estate of House Harrison. Is this map reliable? Fredrin asked as he looked at the sketchy-looking map that looked like it was drawn by a 10-year-old kid. Yes, sir. It doesn't look much, but it was drawn by one of the spies we sent to House Harrison. A warrior from House Keller responded with a nod. Hearing this, Fredrin had no choice but to follow the route drawn on the map. Sir, I think we are almost there. Look at that building. That should be the one we are looking for, another warrior exclaimed. Fredrin followed the direction he was pointing and saw a building that looked like a storage facility. We really made it here by following this shady map. Fredrin was speechless, but he quickly observed the situation. Strange. He furrowed his eyebrows. Why would a building like that be left unguarded? Just then, a powerful aura suddenly burst out behind them. Sensing this, Fredrin unsheathed his sword and shouted, "Enemies behind us! Prepare for battle!" The warriors who had followed him immediately reacted upon hearing his words. They unsheathed their weapons and looked behind them. However, there was only one person. It was a middle-aged man with graying hair. He was holding a short sword as he approached them with steady footsteps. Just one man? Kill him! The warriors charged towards the man and brandished their weapons aggressively. Wait! There's something wrong with that man. Fredrin warned them, but it was already too late. He could sense an oppressive power from the man, one that was almost the same as Warwick. The middle-aged man smirked coldly and muttered, "A bunch of fools." With a casual wave of his short sword, 3 warriors fell, their bodies chopped into several pieces. This time, the warriors finally realized that this was no ordinary individual, so they quickly retreated. You want to escape? It's too late for that. The middle-aged man pursued them like a ghost. It didn't even take him long to eliminate more than 10 warriors. He was about to kill the last one when a figure appeared and blocked his attack. Bang! Oh! He was surprised. He stared at Fredrin with a look of interest. He didn't expect that an elite knight could actually block his sword. Sir Fredrin, the man who had just escaped death, was horrified. If it weren't for Fredrin, he would have been one of the corpses scattered on the ground. He was also an elite knight, but he couldn't even see the middle-aged man's sword. Meanwhile, Fredrin's expression darkened. You are a transcendent knight. The middle-aged man grinned at his words. Chapter 253. The Lunatic, Xavier Coldstone. You are quite sharp. That guy called you Fredrin. You must be the famous steel bastion of House Silversword. The middle-aged warrior chuckled. Fredrin's face was covered with sweat. It's just an empty title, he responded in a grim tone. Let's see if you are as sturdy as the rumors say. The middle-aged man suddenly charged at him and casually swung his sword. Seeing this, Fredrin imbued mana into his arms and lifted his shield to block the man's short sword. Clang! The impact made Fredrin's feet sink deeply to the ground, but he stood firmly, like an immovable wall. Oh? It seems like you have some strength. No wonder people call you the Steel Bastion, the middle-aged warrior nonchalantly said. Who are you? Fredrin looked at the man with a grave look. Just blocking that one attack made his arms numbed, and it looked like the guy didn't even put much of his strength. The middle-aged man put on a look of surprise. Oh my! Look at my manners. He cleared his throat and dramatically introduced himself. I am Xavier Coldstone. Hearing this, Fredrin's eyes darkened. Damn it! Why did it have to be this crazy guy? Xavier Coldstone was a member of House Coldstone, a barony in the northeast. He was supposed to be the first heir of the household, but due to his weird personality and strange habits, the family head was worried that he would cause a lot of trouble, so he removed Xavier from the heir candidates. Have you heard of me? Xavier grinned at him. He had the face of a middle-aged man, but the way he talked resembled that of a mischievous teenager. Before responding, Fredrin looked at the only survivor in the group and told him, Go and save those employees. I will take care of things here. The elite knight hesitated, but knowing that he would only be a hindrance, he nodded. Yes, sir. He then turned around and left in a hurry. Xavier didn't stop the man and just watched the scene with interest. Fredrin moved his gaze back to Xavier and finally responded. I have heard a lot about you, Lord Xavier. You are currently ranked 59th in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. You are one of the strongest experts in the Empire, a warrior with unrivaled abilities. Xavier nodded, seemingly pleased by his words. I like you. Why don't you work for me? I can give you as much as the silver words are paying you. What do you think? Fredrin felt goosebumps all over his body upon sensing the other party's invasive gaze. Xavier's had unique preferences. He didn't distinguish between men and women. As long as he liked the person, he would do anything to get them. Fredrin shook his head. Unfortunately, I would have to decline your offer, my lord. I have already signed a contract with House Silversword. I also received more than just money from them, and it is something that I must repay. Xavier revealed a look of disappointment. Is that so? What a pity. He shook his head with a look of regret. In the next instant, his expression abruptly changed. His eyes turned cold and his mouth curved into a smirk. You can go and die then. Xavier suddenly disappeared and reappeared above Fredrin while swinging his sword with a manic look. Whoosh! So fast. Fredrin gritted his teeth as he lifted his shield above him. He took a deep breath and braced himself from the impact. Clang! His legs almost collapsed from the overwhelming weight behind the attack. The bones in his left arm almost snapped, so he had to imbue more mana to increase his durability. After he had blocked that attack, another one followed. Clang! Cracks appeared on the surface of his shield. If it weren't for his mana, his shield would have already crumbled from the impact. Oh my! You are so sturdy. I like you more and more. A depraved look appeared in Xavier's eyes, making Fredrin feel a chill in his heart. With a grunt, he pushed his shield to send Xavier away. He then retreated to a safe distance to gather his breath. This crazy lunatic wasn't even serious, but he almost snapped my arm. I can't defend forever. I must do something. Fredrin, stop being close-minded and follow me. You just don't know how amazing it feels to do it with a man. Xavier winked at him. I'm sorry, but I will never do it with a man. Fredrin felt sick just thinking about it. He even thought of committing suicide to save himself from Xavier's depravity. It looks like I have to use force. Anyway, I like it better that way. Xavier licked his lips and rushed towards him. Whoosh! Clang! 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 Fredrin did his best to block and deflect the other party's attack, but he soon found himself slowly losing his stamina and mana. Xavier's attacks became stronger as the battle dragged on. My shield is almost at its limit. Fredrin's expression fell. In a moment of desperation, he sent a flurry of stabs and slashes. Whoosh! 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 Whoa! Xavier wiped the blood on his neck, which came from a small cut. He licked the blood and sent Fredrin a sultry look as he said, So you like it rough, huh? What a coincidence! Fredrin could no longer hold back his anger and lashed out. Damn it! Leave me alone, you bastard! Hearing this, Xavier's face contorted with fury. What did you say? Fredrin felt the sudden change in the atmosphere, but he couldn't care less. Just kill me. I have no interest in playing with your games, he shouted. Xavier snorted and imbued mana into his sword before he released an attack. He launched a scorching blade of fire that burned everything in its path. That sword, it's actually a relic. Fredrin wasted no time. He twisted his body and lifted his shield to the side in an attempt to deflect the fire blade. Chapter 254. The Despicable Richard. Fredrin's shield melted under the intense heat, so he had no choice but to abandon it. It actually burned my arm even though I covered myself with mana. Fredrin grimaced as he looked at the severe burns on his left arm. If he had been a second later, his arm would have melted from the heat. I must dodge that fire blade, he told himself as he warily glanced at the crazy lunatic standing a few meters away from him. As long as your face and that thing down there aren't destroyed, burning the rest of your body should be all right. Xavier coldly muttered as he approached him. Fredrin raised his sword and kept his eyes on Xavier while preparing for an attack. I can't die here just yet. While Fredrin was fighting for his life, the battle at the main gate of the estate was slowly reaching a conclusion. The warriors of House Harrison couldn't defend themselves against the well-organized attack of the enemies. The warriors of House Silversword in particular were so strong that they needed 3 people on the same level to defeat just one person. What the hell? Are these warriors really from that small territory? How did they train these people? Richard clutched his abdomen as he looked at the proud knight standing before him. What is your name? The knight stared coldly at him and responded. I am Owen. Remember it well. Author's note. In case you have forgotten, Owen briefly appeared as a newbie instructor. See chapter 113 for reference. Richard thought hard, but he couldn't recall someone noteworthy with that name. He had already fought 4 knights in this battle. He had slain 2 of them and severely injured another, but this guy was different. If you think you can defeat me just because you managed to land a hit, then you are mistaken. Richard snorted. He didn't like the expression that his opponent was giving him. If we were in the same realm, I would have mopped the floor with you, Owen mockingly replied. You! His words enraged Richard. In a fit of anger, he launched himself forward and brandished his weapon with terrifying intensity. Whoosh! I have to end this battle quickly, Richard thought to himself. He had been fighting non-stop for almost an hour and his mana was already close to exhaustion. It wouldn't end well for him if the battle was prolonged. In the next instant, Owen led 7 warriors to clash with Richard. Richard used his superior realm to overpower them. In a few moves, he killed 3 of the 7 warriors. I need to kill the annoying bugs first. They are not powerful, but fighting multiple enemies at once is too physically draining. Thinking about this, Richard released a series of attacks. Whoosh! Whoosh! Clang! 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 2 more warriors fell under his blade. He had also injured Owen and the other 2, but it wasn't enough to kill them. Meanwhile, he had also received some cuts and bruises. Fatigue began to accumulate and he was slowly running out of mana. Just a little bit more. Richard imbued his remaining mana into his sword to deliver mighty strikes successively. This time, the 2 warriors finally fell, leaving Owen as the sole survivor. However, Richard wasn't unscathed. His left arm hung loosely after Owen had cut off a major tendon. On the other hand, Owen's chest was bleeding excessively. One could even see his bones from his wounds. Just as Richard was about to attack, he found himself unable to take a step. He looked down and saw that his right leg was bleeding. He also got me there. When did it happen? He was stunned. You just noticed? You were so focused on killing my comrades that you failed to detect my attacks. Owen's voice drifted into his ears. Now it's time for you to die. Owen pounced at him and stabbed out his sword. Seeing this, Richard gritted his teeth and lifted his weapon. Clang! He managed to block Owen's first strike, but the latter didn't stop there. He released one strike after another. Whoosh! Whoosh! Clang! Clang! To think that I would be pushed back by a mere knight. Richard couldn't accept what was happening. Just then, he saw that Owen's sword was about to piece his neck, so he pulled a nearby warrior and used him as a shield. SSS-KK. My lord. Richard stared at the dying man with no hint of remorse. Owen didn't expect his enemy to suddenly use his own subordinate to protect himself. It was a despicable move that caught him off guard. Richard saw this and took the opportunity to attack him. He swung his sword, leaving a deep wound that cut open Owen's chest. The latter fell to his knees, his insides bursting out. Ugh! Owen grabbed his internal organs and tried to push them back inside his body, but he realized that he couldn't muster the strength anymore. You have some strength, but you aren't ruthless enough. Richard's indifferent voice drifted over. Owen lifted his head and saw Richard limping towards him. Why you? He couldn't say the rest of his words as Richard cut off his head with a swing of his sword. Thud! Owen's headless body fell to the ground. Instructor Owen! Sir Owen! The warriors of House Silversword exclaimed in grief when they witnessed Owen's death. They angrily rushed towards Richard, hoping to avenge their instructor. But before they could even reach their target, a group of warriors stopped them. "Don't let them get close. Protect Lord Richard. Quick! Bring Lord Richard out of here." A warrior of House Harrison grabbed the severely wounded Richard and carried him away. "Stop him! Don't let them get away. We must avenge Sir Owen." A few warriors of House Silversword noticed this and quickly pursued the escaping enemy. Another fierce clash erupted because of this, and more warriors from both sides fell. The face of Anton Keller, who was watching the battle, turned unsightly. "What have I done, Aru?" Chapter 255. Xavier's interest. "What? Owen is dead?" Warwick, who was fighting against Treston, lost his composure when he heard the commotion. Owen was a loyal warrior and friend. He treated him like a younger brother despite the huge difference in their status. His death filled him with grief and profound rage. "I'm going to kill you all." Warwick's eyes turned bloodshot as he unleashed every last bit of his mana. His aura suddenly skyrocketed, which shocked Treston. Veins protruded in Warwick's arms as he swung his main weapon, the double-bladed spear. Whoosh! A fearsome force was released and came crashing down upon Treston. The old warrior furrowed his eyebrows. The power behind this attack had already surpassed his own. This man, overexerting himself like this, he didn't expect his opponent to reveal such devastating power at the last moment. With a serious look on his face, Treston gathered his mana and imbued everything into his lance. "I didn't want to use this lance's power, but you leave me with no choice," the old man muttered as he made a swiping motion. Whoosh! Bang! A violent shockwave erupted after their weapons clashed. Warwick grimaced from the impact, and he had almost let go of his double-bladed spear. "This power." Looking at his stunned face, Treston said, "To think that you can still block my lance with that garbage of a weapon." His lance was engraved with a vibration ability. He could make his weapon release a powerful vibration that increased his attack by almost fivefold. It was also because of this weapon that he managed to cement himself as one of the top powerhouses in the Empire. Warwick looked down and noticed the cracks on his sword's blade. With its present state, it would be destroyed in a few more strikes. "Although I didn't use the full extent of its ability, it's still impressive that you can block it unharmed. Now try blocking this." After saying those words, Treston charged at him and stabbed out his lance. Whoosh! "I must dodge this attack." Warwick gritted his teeth and quickly moved his legs as he twisted his body. He somehow avoided the attack, but the power of vibration still struck him, making him cough a mouthful of blood. Cough! Insane. I managed to dodge, but the vibration still affected me. What kind of power is this? He clutched his shoulder while warily looking at Treston. He had already unleashed all his mana to increase his physical abilities, but his strength still fell short compared to his opponent. "Impressive. You're more durable than you look," Treston remarked with a calm gaze. "It would be a pity to kill you. I don't want the North to lose a capable warrior, so why don't you surrender, Sir Warwick? I am willing to forget all the words you said earlier as long as you admit defeat." The old warrior was still afraid of House Silversword's revenge, so he was willing to compromise. Warwick glanced at him in surprise. It seems like his family is still his top priority for him to make such a decision. He sent the old warrior a deep look. He then raised his hand and shouted, "Everyone, retreat!" Meanwhile, Fredrin was still fighting with Xavier. What is taking them so long? Is this really a trap? He looked around, searching for the employees who had been captured, but no matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't sense their presence. "How dare you look away from me?" Xavier's voice drifted into his ears. He instinctively jumped backwards while moving his eyes to his enemy. Xavier chased after him and released a flurry of stabs and slashes. Whoosh! Whoosh! Fredrin's face was full of sweat as he defended himself from the attacks. He was about to empty his mana, making things look grim for him. Just as he was about to surrender to his fate, he suddenly sensed a group of people coming out from the storage facility. He turned his head and saw the elite knight from before leading a bunch of ordinary people. Sir Fredrin, we need to leave quickly. There are people pursuing us. The elite knight shouted urgently. Hearing this, Fredrin immediately responded. You guys go and leave using the secret entrance. I will buy you some time to escape. The elite knight was unwilling to leave him behind, but for the sake of their mission, he nodded. Yes, sir. Do you think I will let you guys escape? A teasing voice echoed into everyone's ears. A figure suddenly appeared before the escaping employees, preventing them from taking another step. It was Xavier. He had a strange smile on his face that made everyone feel goosebumps all over their bodies. I will stop him. Now go. Fredrin suddenly appeared out of nowhere and attacked Xavier. Clang. Xavier clicked his tongue with a hint of annoyance. He had been lenient with Fredrin earlier because he found him interesting, but this guy was starting to get on his nerves with his stunts. Let's go. We can't let Sir Fredrin's sacrifice go in vain. The elite knight shouted at the shaking employees. Hearing this, they quickly rushed out of the place. Fredrin was relieved to see this. My job is done. Please forgive me, honey. I might not be able to see you again. He felt a wave of sadness when he thought about how his wife would have to take care of their child all by herself. Just when he thought that it would be his end, Xavier's sword suddenly stopped just a few centimeters from piercing his neck. You are an interesting man, Fredrin. You are actually willing to sacrifice yourself for the sake of those commoners. Xavier lowered his sword and stared at him with twinkling eyes. Seeing the other party's expression, Fredrin felt a chill. Kill me. I have no intention of playing your stupid games. He would rather die than let this weird man humiliate him. Xavier wasn't angered by his words. Instead, it only made him more attracted to Fredrin. You are coming with me. Those were the last words that Fredrin heard before he lost consciousness. Chapter 256. Rift. After knocking Fredrin unconscious, Xavier carried him and left with a broad grin on his face. On the other hand, the battle at the main gate of the estate had already come to an end with the retreat of House Silversword and House Keller. Looking at the disappearing enemies, Tristan sighed while shaking his head. Did I make the correct decision? Gather the wounded and have them treated immediately, he shouted to his men. Yes, sir. They managed to repel the enemies, but they had suffered numerous casualties. Many of their warriors died, including a few knights and even elite knights. Tristan didn't know if this could still be called their victory. While he was observing the destroyed walls, a warrior came to his side and asked, Sir, what should we do with the enemy corpses? Tristan frowned and thought for a moment before he replied, Gather them in one place and don't let anyone touch them. Hearing this, the warrior was surprised, but he still acknowledged the command with a salute. Yes, sir. Tristan looked at the corpses all over the place with a gloomy expression. I just hope that Lord Darwin will stop this meaningless battle. Only our warriors would suffer from this. Warwick didn't just arbitrarily make the decision to retreat. When Tristan suggested it, he coincidentally saw the signal from Fredrin's group. Just then, he saw Anton Keller approaching him on horseback. Sir Warwick. The old man's face was filled with guilt and remorse. Truthfully, Warwick resented the old man. They wouldn't have to fight if he had stayed in his mansion. But Warwick knew that he was also at fault. He had underestimated the enemy's power and it ended in tragedy. Many warriors died, including the warriors of House Silversword. Looking at the old man's face, he shook his head and waved his hand. Let's not talk about this for now. We are still in enemy territory, so we must return to the estate and prepare our defenses. Anton Keller saw the grief in Warwick's eyes. He wanted to say some words of comfort, but he was too embarrassed to say it. After all, he had made the decision to attack despite Warwick's warnings. All right. They headed back to Lanila where they regrouped with Fredrin's team. However, they were stunned when they saw that there was only one warrior who had returned. Warwick's heart dropped when he saw this and he quickly grabbed the only survivor in Fredrin's team. Where is Fredrin? Where is he? The elite knight was terrified by Warwick's gaze. With a trembling voice he replied, Sir Fredrin. He stayed behind to buy us some time to escape. Warwick and the warriors of House Silversword couldn't believe their ears. Warwick subconsciously grabbed the man tighter and muttered with a blank look. How could this be? Fredrin, we encountered a transcendent knight during the rescue operation. He killed all the members of our team, and I was only lucky enough to be saved by Sir Fredrin. The elite knight grimaced as he recalled that scene. Warwick frowned. He was aware that there were 3 transcendent knights helping House Harrison. Who was it? He asked with a cold look. Xavier Coldstone. Hearing this, the face of a middle-aged man wearing a strange smile appeared on his face. If it's him, there's a chance that Fredrin is still alive. I should wait for Sir Galliner's arrival before making a decision. With Fredrin's life and death uncertain, the group returned to the estate with grim faces. Upon returning, they immediately bolstered their defenses in case of enemy retaliation. When night came, Warwick finally received the casualty report. Sir, House Keller lost 57 of their warriors. 24 of them are heavily injured and the rest are lightly injured. On our side, we lost 28 warriors. 7 are heavily injured, while the rest have minor injuries. Warwick's face darkened upon hearing this. Owen, my friend, my brother. He clenched his fists while looking at the list of casualties. You may leave. He motioned to his subordinate. The man bowed and left without saying a word. Warwick slumped into his seat and covered his face with his palm. Unknowingly, tears slid down his face as he remembered the faces of those who had died. My comrades, in the clinic of House Harrison, Darwin went to visit his injured son along with the important members of the family. When he heard that his son was in critical condition, he immediately rushed to the clinic. Where is Richard? Where is my son? Darwin roared at the medical personnel as soon as he arrived. Lord Richard is still being treated, my lord. One of the medical personnel responded nervously. Where is he? Bring me to his room, Darwin shouted. You can't go there, my lord. The doctors and nurses might not be able to concentrate with you around. Please relax and have some faith in our medical personnel. Treston suddenly appeared. Seeing him, Darwin walked towards him and slapped him hard. Pa! My son was harmed because of you. If you had protected him well, he wouldn't have been hurt. Darwin vented his frustrations on the old warrior. Everyone was shocked to see this. They felt pity for the old warrior, but no one dared to speak up. Treston didn't even flinch after taking that slap. It didn't hurt him in the slightest, but he felt something within him crumble. He lowered his head and apologized. I was incompetent, my lord. It was indeed my fault. I will voluntarily step down from my position as the commander of the army to atone for my incompetence. He didn't wait for Darwin's response and left the clinic with heavy strides. Looking at the old warrior's disappearing figure, Darwin belatedly realized that he had overreacted. Wait, Sir Treston, he called out to the old warrior, but Treston didn't look back. Damn it! Darwin gritted his teeth and stormed inside the clinic to search for his son. Everyone felt a sense of unease all of a sudden. A rift has been formed between Darwin and Treston.
Chapter 257. Xavier's Disgusting Acts.
The next day, Darwin summoned all the highest-ranking warriors of the household, including the houses allied to them. He sat in the most prominent seat and swept his gaze to the gathered crowd. Everyone, we didn't anticipate the enemy's attack this time. We all thought that they would ignore the lives of those lowly employees, so we only left Lord Xavier to guard the prisoners. A long, boring speech followed, but everyone listened attentively for they could tell that the Viscount was furious. They had heard of his son's critical condition, so they could understand his feelings. After a speech full of righteous indignation, Darwin finally revealed his true intentions for summoning everyone. Everyone, we must attack them now. We managed to force them to retreat yesterday, and they are currently at their weakest since most of their warriors are injured. This is the perfect time to destroy House Keller for good and show His Highness our importance. When he mentioned the second prince, everyone furrowed their eyebrows. Who didn't want to be acquainted with the imperial family? My lord, we must stop this battle now. An aged voice echoed in the meeting hall. Everyone turned their gazes over and looked at the old warrior seated to Darwin's left. It was Treston. Darwin frowned at the old man's words. Sir Tristan, those people harmed my son, the heir of the household. How can I take this lying down? Tristan shook his head. All our actions have consequences. He paused and stared deeply at the Viscount before he continued. We took their people, so they retaliated and rescued them. Lord Richard wouldn't have been injured if we hadn't captured those innocent workers. Hearing this, Darwin angrily slammed his hand on the table. Are you saying that it was my fault since I made the decision? Tristan's expression remained calm as he replied. My lord, don't let greed cloud your judgment. The old warrior's words struck a nerve that made him snap in anger. Tristan, you have repeatedly questioned my decisions. Who do you think you are? Tristan sighed and shook his head. I am not questioning your decisions, my lord. I am only giving a suggestion based on our situation. Darwin was about to respond when a snickering sound interrupted their conversation. He was about to curse the person, but when he saw that it was Xavier, he held back his tongue. Do you have something to say, Lord Xavier? Darwin sternly glanced at him. Xavier grinned at the Viscount, looking completely relaxed and carefree. He was the only one in the hall who was unbothered by their situation. Lord Viscount, stop showing that ugly side of yours. It makes me sick. Everyone stared at him in surprise, unable to believe that he had uttered those words. They were unable to understand the meaning behind his words. Was he trying to provoke the Viscount, or did he just say those words to stop the argument from escalating? Darwin's mouth twitched. No one had spoken to him in such a manner before, but he couldn't even show his anger because the other party was no ordinary person. Pardon my manners, he coldly said.
Xavier Shuklat.
That is all right. Your son almost died, so your reaction is understandable. Besides, he paused and revealed a depraved smile as he pulled the chains he was holding. I'm not against your idea of attacking them. Clang, clang. The chains made clanging sounds, and everyone subconsciously moved their eyes to the person whose neck was tied to the other end of the chains. But I want Warwick alive. Xavier's voice drifted into their ears, making them feel goosebumps all over their bodies. Darwin's fury dissipated upon hearing this. He nodded his head and laughed. Ha ha ha. Of course, Lord Xavier. As long as we fulfill our objectives, Warwick is all yours. He didn't even hesitate. This was just a minor matter in exchange for Xavier's help. Good. Xavier grinned, looking pleased with his response. You idiots! A sneering voice echoed in the hall. Surprised, everyone stared at the man tied in chains with incredulous gazes. The man's body was covered in bruises and cuts. He also had weird red marks on his neck, which everyone could already tell from a glance. From his wounds and the strange red marks on his neck, a wild scene appeared in everyone's mind. The thought of it almost made them puke the food they had for breakfast. If you think that you can capture Sir Warwick, then you are gravely mistaken. Fredrin stared coldly at Xavier and spat a mouthful of saliva filled with blood. His words made the people present frown. Xavier crossed his legs and pulled Fredrin closer to him. He stood up and propped Fredrin's chin. Did I tell you to speak? Or do you want me to punish you again like I did last night? Fredrin's face darkened when he recalled the terrible nightmare he had endured at the hands of this man. You will pay for this. Fredrin's eyes were filled with hatred. Oh my! That got me excited all of a sudden. Xavier grabbed Fredrin's face and gave him a forceful kiss. He then licked the latter's face and gave a resounding slap. Pa! Never speak when I don't tell you to. Xavier spoke in a harsh tone. Fredrin couldn't fight back since his mana was sealed. The slap sent him to the floor. He coughed heavily and puked in disgust. Everyone was disgusted by Xavier's actions, but no one dared to show it their faces. I apologize for the interruption, everyone. Xavier went back to his seat with an apologetic look. He then looked at Darwin and said, Please continue, Lord Viscount. I want to hear your plans. Ha ha. All right. Darwin nervously chuckled. The meeting resumed after that. Since Xavier had already expressed his agreement with Darwin's decision, No one dared to raise their opinions. They were afraid to end up like Fredrin, so they had no choice but to follow reluctantly. Chapter 258. Unprepared Defenses. Later that day, House Keller was still increasing the defenses around their estate. They also hired mercenaries to replace the warriors who had died in the recent battle. Everyone was busy with their tasks, and it was especially true for Warwick. He was overseeing the military training of the mercenaries they recruited. These guys are strong, but they don't have the discipline of a soldier. This was the problem of hiring mercenaries, but they had no choice given their situation. Suddenly, a warrior rushed to his side with an urgent look on his face. "Sir, bad news." Hearing this, Warwick frowned and looked at the warrior with a stern gaze. Noticing his dissatisfaction, the warrior stopped in front of him and immediately gave his report. "Sir, the enemies are coming. They have more than 500 soldiers." "What?" Warwick didn't expect them to make a move so soon. After gathering his thoughts, he waved his hand and shouted to the warriors, "Get your equipment ready and prepare for battle." The warriors and the mercenaries were stunned, but they quickly moved their feet. There was no time to waste, and everyone hurried to equip their armor and weapons. Warwick jumped onto his horse and squeezed his legs, urging it to move. "We are not ready yet. Can we even survive until our reinforcements arrive?" he thought as he headed to the main gate to check the situation. They had already set up the catapults on top of the walls, but there were still many defensive constructions that were left unfinished. Warwick's expression worsened when he saw this, but he had to remain calm to avoid making his soldiers waver. The team responsible for operating the catapults came to him upon his arrival. "Sir, all the catapults are in place, but the ballistae are still not completed. The crenels and merlins have been repaired, but they are hastily made so they might not withstand if the enemies have catapults." Warwick nodded, his face looking grim. "Inform the workers to bring the heated oil on top of the walls and have them bring as many large stones as possible." He could only be resourceful here since they weren't fully prepared for a siege. This wasn't an ideal situation. He could only hope that reinforcements would come soon. "Yes, sir." While everyone was hastily preparing for the enemy's arrival, Warwick climbed on top of the wall. With his sharp eyesight, he could already see the enemies from the distance. Furthermore, he also sensed 4 formidable auras, including Treston. For transcendence, he clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "We have over 200 warriors, including the mercenaries we hired, but will this be enough to defend the unprepared estate?" Sweat trickled down his face as he tried to come up with a solution, but no ideas came to his mind. "Hurry up, Sir Galliner. Otherwise, you might have to see my corpse by the time you arrive." At this moment, the sound of battle horns echoed from the distance. This made the soldiers and the mercenaries behind the wall feel nervous. "Do not be afraid. As long as I am here, this wall will stand firm." Warwick's voice drifted into everyone's ears, easing the anxiety of the warriors. They looked up at the figure standing on top of the wall. He wore a new battle armor that made him look heroic. "Enemies are closing in, but we must never falter. Our reinforcements are coming, and we only need to hold the enemies until they arrive." Warwick shouted, his back straight like that of an unbending sword. "Defend the estate. Kill the enemies." Someone from the crowd shouted, his words igniting everyone's morale. "Defend the castle. Kill the enemies." Warwick was relieved to see this. He then issued a series of commands. "Archers, into position. Cavalry, stand by and wait for my instructions. Melee units." As the enemy approached, everyone's heart raced. Warwick stood atop the wall, looking at the approaching army with a serious expression. "Catapults, ready?" he shouted when the enemy was about to cross their catapult's range. The operators immediately loaded the huge stones and waited for his command to set them loose. In the next moment, Warwick's eyes turned cold as he waved his hand. "Release!" At his signal, the operators released the huge stones toward the approaching army. Whoosh! 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 Just when the stones were about to hit their intended targets, 4 warriors suddenly appeared and destroyed them. Bang! Bang!
Bang!
Seeing this, Warwick furrowed his eyebrows. Don't stop. Release at will, he shouted to the operators. Suddenly, he noticed a detachment force of about 100 warriors charging towards the walls. Archers, knock your arrows and wait for my signal. He immediately gave the command upon seeing this. Something is weird about those people. Warwick frowned as he looked at the detachment force. They were composed of infantry soldiers and they weren't even properly equipped. Most of them only wore leather armor. Loose! He gave the command when the infantry unit stepped into their archer's range.
Su! 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 Su!
Wait! Don't kill us! We are not soldiers. Ah! Help! The cries of the enemy infantry drifted over. Hearing their words, realization dawned on Warwick. Don't tell me those people are slaves. He gritted his teeth when he thought of this. Sir, those people aren't soldiers. What should we do? A warrior hesitantly asked him. Warwick was silent for a moment before he made a difficult decision. Kill them all. It was uncertain whether those people were truly slaves, so he could only be ruthless here. What a cunning move! The warriors were stunned by Warwick's command, but they still followed him.
Su! Su! Su!
The archers hardened their hearts as they released their arrows to the infantry unit down below. They were only lightly armed, so it didn't take long for them to collapse under the heavy barrage of arrows. Soon, the ground beneath the walls of the main gate was dyed red. Chapter 259. Breach the main gate. Seeing his men wavering at the death of those men, Warwick frowned. So this was their intention from the start. By using those slaves, they want to weaken the hearts of my soldiers to lower our fighting spirit. With them being significantly outnumbered, it wasn't a good thing. If the soldiers' morale were low, they wouldn't be able to effectively defend the walls. Thinking about this, Warwick shouted at his men. We are at war. You must not feel pity for our enemies. It was my decision to kill those men. You don't need to blame yourselves. I will take full responsibility for everything, so fight without worry. The warriors were invigorated by his words. At this moment, the enemy sent another infantry unit. This time, there were about 200 of them. The only difference was that half of them were fully equipped and they also carried a gate-destroying machine. Aim your arrows at the people carrying the gate-destroying machine, Warwick barked out. Yes, sir.
Su! Su! Su!
Hundreds of arrows descended from the sky, striking at the enemies with merciless force. Many enemy warriors died after being struck by the arrows, but they didn't stop their relentless charge. The enemy infantry unit protected the gate, destroying the machine with great effort. Some of them even used their own bodies to defend the people who were carrying this huge machine. We are almost there. Don't stop running, shouted the leader of the unit, a man fully geared in steel armor. He stood at the forefront, parrying the arrows released upon them using his spear. With a casual wave of his spear, the dozens of arrows aimed at him were destroyed. Meanwhile, atop the walls, Warwick also noticed this powerful warrior. They sent an elite knight to lead the second detachment force, but half of their unit is still composed of non-warriors. How ruthless of them to use those people as meat shields. Warwick waved his hand and gave another command. When they are right beneath the wall, pour the heated oil and release a burning arrow to burn them. This was a cruel decision to make, but Warwick had no choice. He couldn't afford to be merciful given their situation. Aru, I will carry all the sins committed by my subordinates. Please forgive them. He silently prayed in his heart after giving the command. In the next moment, the warriors on top of the wall poured the heated oil onto the enemies beneath them. Ah! Ah! Screams of anguish echoed. Bear with it. We are here to fulfill our mission. Destroy the gate, the leader of the infantry unit shouted to his men. He also fell victim to the scalding hot oil, but he lessened the degree of the burns by using his mana. Still suffering from the burns, the infantry unit grimaced as they carried the gate-destroying machine in front of the main gate. Do it! The leader shouted while protecting the machine from being destroyed. Seeing their leader's efforts, they didn't hesitate any longer. They activated the machine by injecting their mana into it. Soon, the inscriptions on the surface of the machine lit up. Suddenly, dozens of burning arrows shot at them.
Su. Su. Su.
The leader of the infantry unit narrowed his eyes. He imbued mana into his spear and brandished it with incredible speed to deflect the arrows. With his protection, no arrow was able to land on the machine. "Watch out!" someone shouted in alarm. Everyone lifted their heads and saw a huge number of large stones descending upon them. "Don't be afraid. I'm here," the leader of the infantry unit snorted. He targeted the stones aimed at the machine, turning them into small fragments with a series of stabs from his spear. With nothing stopping the machine, it soon fired a beam of mana at the main gate. Boom! A loud explosion rang out, shaking everyone's ears. After the cloud of dust subsided, they saw a huge hole in the gates which was big enough for a few men to enter at once. "The gates have been breached. Emergency! The gates have been breached." Warwick received the grave report from his subordinates. With a dark expression, Warwick issued a command. "Cavalry, prepare to engage with intruders." "Yes, sir." Warwick had already anticipated this. The main gate of the estate wasn't engraved with a defensive ability, so he knew that it wouldn't last for long. He turned his attention to the enemy's main army and noticed that they had finally made their move. "Don't let their main army get close so easily. Release your arrows at will," he shouted. He then passed the authority to command to an elite knight of House Keller. "Sir, where are you going?" the man asked in surprise after getting Warwick's instruction. Warwick tapped his shoulder and replied, "I need to command the cavalry unit. Stay here and try your best to eliminate as many enemies as you can." Hearing this, the elite knight nodded. "I will do my best, sir." Warwick jumped down from the wall and climbed onto his horse. He lifted his double-bladed spear and shouted, "The enemies are upon us. Lift your weapons and prepare to charge with me." The cavalry unit unsheathed their weapons after hearing his words. Their faces were grim as they nervously looked at the destroyed main gate. A moment later, the fierce shouts of the enemies drifted into their ears as they poured in from the destroyed gates. "Follow me to kill the enemies." Warwick squeezed his legs, making his horse neigh in protest before it sprinted forward with great momentum. The cavalry unit followed his charge as they shouted their battle cries. An intense battle broke out between the cavalry unit and the enemy infantry who were the first to storm inside the estate. Clang! Clang! Bang! Bang! The enemy infantry unit was already a spent force, so they quickly collapsed under the hands of the cavalry unit's furious attacks. However, a small group of the infantry unit survived the assault. They were composed of less than 20 men, with the elite knight from earlier taking command. "I must kill those people." With fierce eyes, Warwick urged his mount to charge towards the small group. Chapter 260. Warwick against 4 Transcendents. The elite knight felt a heavy and oppressive aura locking in on him, making his heart drop. This aura must be from that person. He turned his head at the warrior charging at them with unstoppable force. He wielded a double-bladed spear, the weapon used by the famous Warwick. "It's him! Warwick!" the elite knight exclaimed. "Focus your attacks on that person," he commanded his men. He rushed forward, leading his men in an attempt to stop Warwick. However, "Do you think a mere elite knight can stop me?" Warwick's indifferent voice drifted into his ears. In the next moment, a terrifying power was unleashed upon them, making their hearts palpitate with fear. Bang! With a swing of his double-bladed spear, Warwick effortlessly killed the elite knight's small team. Looking at the corpses of his comrades, the elite knight was filled with disbelief. Is there really that much of a difference between our strengths? He lifted his severely wounded body while looking at Warwick's formidable figure. With a bleak smile, he said, "You might be powerful, but can you stop 4 transcendent knights by yourself?" Warwick remained unperturbed by his words. He swung his double-bladed spear and ended the man's life. KSHHK. A powerful elite knight fell just like that. Warwick flicked his weapon and looked at the destroyed gates with a grim look. He could sense that the enemy's main army was about to enter. The enemy's main army is about to enter. Rally behind me and form an defensive formation, he shouted. Hearing his commands, the warriors of House Silversword and House Keller quickly moved into formation. The mercenaries weren't used to these formations, so they moved sloppily. Warwick noticed this, but there was no time to correct them. He could only pray that those hired warriors wouldn't slow them down during the battle. Soon, the ground trembled and the partially destroyed gates were blasted into smithereens. More enemies entered, rushing in with ferocious expressions. Warwick saw a familiar figure leading the enemies. It was Treston, the old warrior he had fought recently. Seeing him, Warwick's face fell. Just then, he sensed another powerful aura, but it didn't stop there. 2 more transcendents appeared. Warwick tightly gripped his weapon while looking at the 4 figures. Warwick, you should surrender. There is no need for you to fight a losing battle. Treston's voice echoed. Hearing this, Warwick took a deep breath. Sir Treston, I am a warrior of House Silversword and I have been tasked to protect this estate. His eyes suddenly turned cold as he added. You won't be able to go through this passage without killing me. Treston sighed and shook his head. How foolish. But I can't blame him. He is only trying to fulfill his task just like me. However, your ending won't be good if you fall into the hands of that person. Thinking about this, he moved his gaze toward a middle-aged man who was holding a sword. It was Xavier Coldstone. I will retire after this battle is over. I'm tired of these meaningless battles. While he was immersed in his thoughts, a weird voice suddenly drifted over. So you are Sir Warwick. You are quite the looker, aren't you? Warwick raised an eyebrow as he looked at the man holding a short sword. That insignia, is he from House Coldstone? Then he must be Xavier Coldstone. Where is Fredrin? He stared deeply at Xavier. I don't understand what you are talking about, Xavier responded with a snicker. Warwick was furious and his aura leaked out because of his agitation. In that case, I will force it out of your mouth, he bellowed as he urged his mount to charge. Xavier grinned when he saw this. With a depraved look, he shouted, Warwick is mine. No one must interfere. Treston frowned at his words, while the other 2 transcendents hesitated. What should we do, Sir Treston? One of the 2 transcendents asked. The old warrior furrowed his eyebrows. We must kill Warwick. But what about Sir Xavier? Treston snorted in response. I will deal with him. This is the only thing I can do for you, Warwick. I might as well kill you than let you suffer in the hands of that bastard. Let's go, Treston yelled as he charged forward. The 2 transcendents no longer hesitated and followed him. At this moment, Xavier and Warwick clashed, causing a storm of dust around them. Bang! When their weapons clashed, Xavier realized that he had severely underestimated his opponent's strength. This strength, Warwick sent him flying into the air after that one clash. He then crashed into the wall with a bang. Warwick, don't hate me for this. Treston suddenly appeared in front of him and swung his weapon with immense force. Whoosh! Warwick frowned. He quickly lifted his sword to block his attack. Clang! A loud clang echoed as their weapons collided. He is really different. Xavier's power is nothing compared to this man. Warwick gritted his teeth as he imbued more mana into his arms and his sword. We're here to support you, Sir Treston. The 2 transcendents finally appeared and attacked Warwick in separate directions. Warwick felt an unprecedented amount of pressure from facing the simultaneous attacks of these transcendents. He pushed himself back to evade the 2 transcendents. Bang! Bang! After their attacks had missed, they relentlessly pursued Warwick and released a series of powerful strikes that caused the ground to shake. If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions, just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.